Hey, what's going on? I was inspired again to just make another video because I'm trying to do one video per week, right? And I was thinking, oh, what can I do? I don't have anything tech related to showcase, right? Recently, I've been trying to learn more deep learning stuff. So I've been following a tutorial for TensorFlow, but I'm not at any level to even showcase that, right? For example. So that's that. Actually, I've been rapping again starting 2 days ago. So I'm hopefully going to document that going forward. We'll see how that goes. But in terms of what I wanted to talk about today, right, this video Ollie uploaded was about, 9 lessons from my favorite YouTuber, and Ali's my current favorite YouTuber, right? And he talks about this one part about talking about what you love, because if you talk about what you love, you don't really have to try so hard, if you will. I don't know why I say that a lot, if you will. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about a 사자성어 that has been on my mind for quite some time, and it's called 배은망덕. What does a 사자성어... Okay, first of all, what is a 사자성어? A 사자성어 is 4 characters that are written in Chinese to sort of represent something, right? It represents something, and that something can be a feeling, can be an attitude, can be an event. So 배은망덕 is a 사자성어 that means to betray grace and to forget good virtue done upon you. Now let's talk about that a little bit. I find it really interesting, and usually it's used in the context of 배은망덕 한, right? It's an adjective in a way. 사람, 배은망덕한 사람, 배은망덕한 놈, 배은망덕한 년, 배은망덕한 아들, 딸. It's using that in that frame. So if you're learning Korean, let's do a flash quiz. How do you say betray in Korean? You're right. It's 배신. How do you say grace in Korean? You're right. It's 은혜. How do you say actually the third one's pretty forget. How do you say you forgot something? 뭐 잊었다, 잊었어, right? And lastly, how do you say virtue in Korean? I had to look this up too. It's 덕, right? It sounds like duck, but softer, 덕. The reason why I'm talking about this is because the Chinese characters that make up this 사자성어 배은망덕 is quite interesting if you look at the Chinese characters. And the only reason why I'm interested in Chinese characters is because I've been studying Kanji for a few years now, though I have been doing it for like the past year plus. So I'm not really good at all, but I like try to sort of look into what it is. And anyway, so studying the Chinese characters in a way helps me practice Japanese. 私は日本語を勉強しています。A kanji, or a Chinese character, is like a drawing, right? Like our ancestors literally drew on, like, okay, I'm exaggerating this right now, but they used to write on like turtle shells or like bones, right? Things like that. Don't take me for my word, but there's literally like a legacy of like things being passed down, right, from generation to generation. And anyway, these Chinese characters evolve in a way, right? So the same Chinese character that we might see today could be written totally differently like 1,000 years ago. Anyway, so let's look into each Chinese character at the drawing, and I'm going to try to remember them, and we'll just talk about it and see how it, we can see how it's part of the composition of this 사자성어. Ready? Okay. So the first one is 자 is 배, right? And 배 is for 배신, and this is for 배신할 배. And I find this Chinese character really interesting because if you look at I like to break it up into 2 parts. The top portion is it represents north. Okay, that's how if you were to write North Korea in Chinese, you would use that Chinese character because it represents the north. The bottom part represents the eye. Yeah, you have the eye, and the reason why I know it's an eye is because in Japanese, if you're trying to write 미르, right, which stands for to see. Like, for example, so anyways, that mi is that, oops. So when I look at that Chinese character, it makes me think of how, like, we have our eyes set forth, but we have the universe or God on top of us and behind. So our eyes aren't looking at God, for example. We're looking straight, and our backs are turned against God, if you will, north, the sky. So it makes me think of, oh wow, betray. We're literally turning our backs against something. So that's how I remembered that Chinese character. The second one is 은혜. And I find this really interesting because apparently that top part with the square and so it's called 대, which represents big, and it's shaped in the form of a person. So that first part is like a person just lying down, arms and legs apart on a bed. That bottom part represents our heart. Okay, that comes up pretty often. That bottom Chinese character represents heart, and on top of that we have a person lying down on his bed. So apparently it's supposed to stand for, let me try. The top portion is supposed to represent something like because of this, because of that. Strange. So the word like reliability, to rely on, comes up according to naver.com. When we mix those two together, apparently it's supposed to represent a very like relied upon heart. Grace is a hard one, but let's just leave it there. The third one stands for idiomatic, which means to forget. Actually, it's funny. This one, I think we have a hat on top, and then we have like a neon that goes like that. And that is supposed to represent a broken sword. So in a way, well, that part specifically is supposed to represent failure. And I guess in this case, we're failing to remember something, right? So we have that heart, broken sword, and then underneath that, I believe we have the heart again. So again, the heart is supposed to represent like a posture or an attitude, I think. So if with those two combined, we have like a heart that failed to forget something. Lastly, we have virtue, talk. And by the way, I'm saying talk because strangely, a lot of Korean words or characters have like a supporting stem to it. I don't know how to say this, but for example, let's go to 배, right? 배 stands for, your stomach, but depending on what you give it before, so 배신할 배, it's a completely different word, character. So in this case, talk has talk behind it to sort of signal that we're talking about virtue. Anyway, this character was the hardest, and the left part of it is supposed to represent a road, right? And in this case, the road is our life, right? So we have the road, and so I break it up into three parts in this. So the first top part is supposed to represent, I think it's 고들직, which means to, this is wrong, but roughly to do the right thing. So it's like you have like a hat and an eye, but basically it means you're supposed to look straight, right? You're supposed to look straight. I think that's the best way to accurately put it. So that part is to sort of represent looking straight, right? Do not falter, right? Whether it's your virtue, right? Like just look straight at the good stuff. And underneath that, you have the heart again. And the heart is supposed to represent how you should conduct your life. Like while you're looking straight, right? While you're living virtuously. Yeah, keep that heart, right? Keep that heart to live virtuously and on that path towards living. So that was a rough breakdown of the 4 Chinese characters that make up 배은망덕. And again, 배은망덕 means to betray grace and to forget the good done upon you. And a good example story that I read was like, let's say your friend and you were walking around, right, across a river, and your friend who was wearing a backpack, right, with all his goods, fell into the river for some reason. you jump into the river and you save your friend, right? But unfortunately, you couldn't get the backpack as well. Well, fortunately, you got your friend up, right? And you do mouth to mouth or whatever. He's good, right? He's alive. He's not going to die, and he's not going to drown and die. But he's mad at you for not also getting his backpack. In that scenario, you would say you're being 배은망덕, or roughly, right? You wouldn't say it that way, but that adjective would be fitting for that person because he's not being grateful for your friend saving his life, for his friend saving his life. Gosh, I'm spelling my words, but you see that, right? He's being ungrateful. So I thought this was a really interesting word, and the reason why I thought about it was because I was thinking about this white elderly man that I met a few years ago. He spoke fluent Korean, and I was like, holy shit, how are you speaking Korean so fluently? And he told me his secret was talking with God. And I was like, holy crap, what? And no kidding, he was like, I practice my Korean by speaking with God. And he was saying how like we can't be 배은망덕해 to our parents and 배은망덕해 to our God, right? Because we're given so many blessings that the least we can do is count them. But right, like don't be ungrateful for the things you're given, like your health, your job, your partner, whatever it is. And that stuck with me and left such a strong impression that it made me think, wow, maybe one way to practice a language, if you don't have a language partner, is to talk with God. And that's, maybe weird if you're not religious, but let's say you are a Christian, right? And you believe in a God that, you have faith that your God will listen to your prayers. And would it really be different if you said your prayer in Portuguese or Greek? I don't think so. If God is all powerful, I'm sure he has an all powerful translator. It's probably not the best way to put it, but you know what I mean. So anyway, wow. Okay, I made this video because I was inspired by Ali. I'm gonna just take a leap of faith here and edit this and chop it up, post it. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and see you next time.